There are few periods in our nation's history more turbulent than the 1960s. The 1960s were a time of great political and racial turmoil. Hope was extinguished as many of our brightest leaders for change were assassinated. And in Vietnam, the war raged on, causing great tension between the people opposed to the war and the government. Chicago was ground zero for racial tensions. They needed someone who was strong enough to speak to racial injustice, but also could unite all people around the idea of revolution. In 1968, the Black Panther Party appointed a young, charismatic chairman of the Illinois branch. His name was FRED Hampton, and he had the ability to lead not just the African American community, but all people who felt unheard. And for this, he was murdered.
Black people need some peace. White people need some peace. And we are going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to struggle relentlessly to bring about some peace, because the people that we're asking for peace, they're a bunch of megalomaniac warmongers, and they don't even understand what peace means. And we've got to fight them. We've got to struggle with them to make them understand what peace means.
The Black Panther Party was founded in 1966 and played a short but important role in the civil rights movement. The party was formed in California by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. But soon, the popularity spread beyond California as chapters opened in Chicago, New York, and other urban areas. In stark contrast with the peaceful rhetoric of Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party preached for a revolutionary war. The Black Panther Party had 4 goals: to provide equality in education, housing, employment, and civil rights. FRED Hampton was only 20 years old when he rose to civil rights stardom. He was a true leader. At just 15 years old, he was an organizer for the NAACP. FRED became known for his ability to motivate and organize communities to create great social change. Perhaps his greatest achievement was brokering a non-aggression pact between the most powerful street gangs in Chicago. He maintained that if gangs continue to fight each other, it only kept them in poverty. He went on to unite groups such as the Young Lords and the Young Patriots organization, unifying Puerto Ricans, blacks, and the working class white people. He sought to be a unifier of all people. In this way, he was different than what the media portrayed the Black Panther Party as. FRED Hampton fought not only for black power, but for power to the people.
Now, we say all power to all people. We say white power to white people. Brown power to brown people. Yellow power to yellow people. Black power to black people.
FRED Hampton also made good on promises at the very core of the Black Panther Party. He believed that education was the way to arm a revolution. He started free breakfast programs so the children would have a place to get nourishment before school. And he even opened free clinics so that people would have access to free healthcare. He held weekly meetings to inspire social change.
If you remember, I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that.
The U.S. government was concerned with the Black Panther Party. J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, referred to the organization as Public Enemy Number 1.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that of the black extremist groups, the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation. In his report for fiscal year 1969, Hoover said the Panthers have perpetrated numerous assaults on police and have engaged in violent confrontations throughout the country.
Hoover also began the COINTELPRO program, whose purpose, according to the FBI documents, was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, and discredit the black nationalist groups. He sought to neutralize their leadership and supporters, and was especially threatened by the rise of a true leader in that movement. To disrupt the Panthers, he enlisted the help of Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan. Hanrahan was an ambitious politician who planned the raid and subsequent murder of Fred Hampton. On December 4th, 1969, at 4:30 in the morning, 14 Chicago police officers raided a Black Panther apartment where Fred Hampton was sleeping next to his pregnant fiancée. They burst through the door shooting, spraying bullets throughout the apartment. The Chicago police tried to say that the shootout was provoked by Black Panther Party members opening fire at announced police officers. But later, that was proven false, as there was only one shot fired up in the air by a wounded Panther Party member. Forensic evidence also proved that Hampton was not killed by the initial gunfire, but by 2 shots fired at his head in close range. Fred Hampton, age 21, and Mark Clark, age 22, were both pronounced dead after an hour-long raid. In the weeks, months, and years that followed the murder of Fred Hampton, it was proven that the Chicago police, led by State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan, in conjunction with the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, conspired to kill Fred Hampton.
And that is that Fred Hampton, 21 years old and a member of a militant, well-known militant group, was murdered in his bed, probably as he lay asleep. It seems very clear to us that he was assassinated.
But if we understood Fred, if we are dedicated that his life wasn't given in vain, then there won't be no more mornings tomorrow.
Even though the police officers were indicted, not one person served any time for the murder of Fred Hampton. Today, many of Fred Hampton's programs still survive, although he is not even taught as part of the Chicago Public School curriculum. His free breakfasts are still offered throughout CPS schools. Fred Hampton was an incredible leader, activist, and person. The tragic murder of this revolutionary caused damage that can still be felt in our city today. Were he alive, perhaps we would have less racial tension in our city and in our nation. Our fractured country still awaits the next revolutionary thinker, the next community organizer, the next unifier, the next Fred Hampton.
Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people?
So your brother's bound and gagged, and they've chained him to a chair. Won't you please come to Chicago just to sing? In a land that's known as freedom, how can such a thing be fair? Won't you please come to Chicago for the help that we can bring? We can change the world, rearrange the world. It's dying to get better. Politicians, sit yourselves down, there's nothing for you.